Hello and welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I am your host this week, Andy. I'm your host every week, but I let the other guy do this part usually. But not this time. It's all me. And this time joining me is everyone's favorite PRP member, Emma.
It's true. I am everyone's favorite. And according to that quiz, I am everyone.
Yes, you and Whitney Houston. And really, you're everybody's favorite because they don't know the massive amounts of shit you talk about behind the scenes.
It's exactly why I would be great at Survivor, Lynn, because I can be nice to your face but talk shit in a confessional.
That's right. And if we didn't get the warning in there, that's right. Since we are live broadcasting, we are not censoring.
Oops, sorry, I forgot.
Well, I was the one who started off. We're with the Purple Rock podcast, and tonight we're working blue because we frankly do a lot. It's just we cut it out, and I'm not going to edit this. If I figure a good portion of the audience is going to hear all the flubs anyway, why do extra work? Why?
Plus, you guys go through the effort of marking every podcast as explicit, so might as well, get your money's worth there.
That's right. I think we do this for the three people who might listen to it with their kids in the car. Shout out three people. If Violin is one of them, that's one of the people. But yeah, okay, that's enough about that. Let's talk about Survivor. That's the thing. And it's good right now, right?
I am enjoying it, which is refreshing because it's been a couple seasons there where I was not.
Yeah, we're coming off a bit of a low period, and I don't think it's just a matter of comparison. I think this is legitimately good stuff, and I really enjoyed this week's episode, despite the fact that it did not end the way I would like to. I kind of liken it, this week's episode, as if It's a Turtle had ended with the Four Horsemen winning. That's kind of what happened this week, but it was still fun to be a part of. What did you think?
Yeah, and in a way it was fun because it was sometimes there's ways where, oh, we hope this will happen, but it just seems so unlikely. And even though this did seem unlikely, they made it feel like it could happen. So it was almost fun to be like, oh, the crazy wild move didn't work.
Yeah, in fact, as it was going on, and you start to see a bit more of his plan, you're thinking, I still don't see where it's going to work. And obviously it's because the editors showed us who they were voting for. And I was just I don't know if he's going to think Brendan. But at the same time, it felt like it was going to work because it didn't feel like Bradley was long for this world. So that's why it probably was enjoyable all the way up until the end. But still, there's so much of a season that I don't feel like, further the analogy I had before, if the Four Horsemen had won It's a Turtle, then it would just be like, oh, wow, PG is the worst season of all time. Whereas I don't feel like, they might have won this battle, but there's still a lot more season to go. And
yeah,
also,
go. Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, that's the thing. It's so early and I feel like they'll probably swap again. And then it's who knows? There's still so much that could happen. Whereas I think if that had happened in Fiji, it would have felt very writings on the wall.
Yeah. So let's get into, obviously we already are, because obviously the thing that people want to talk about this episode is what Michael did at the end of the episode, how he used his cursed James idol and all the antics at tribal council. And before we really get into all of it, I want to just make clear I'm fully on board. I was impressed, and I'll probably just be defending everything he did. And I love teens. Oh my God! Oh wait, good. No. I put that in there. Now, if anybody wants to cut it out and just blackmail me, feel free.
And it's funny because I know what you're actually referring to.
I also really wanted to do that to make you laugh.
It worked.
But yeah.
And Michael's 18, as I tell myself repeatedly.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. It's probably more awkward for you. Whereas for me right now, I feel like the only people in America worth a damn are teenagers. And Survivor showed it again, joined in the fun.
Yeah, good on him. While there was a lot about Michael that was impressive before. Like, who knew he had some game in him too? Like, and this wasn't really discussed, but when he found the idol, and like, yeah, maybe he watched as a kid and then like stopped. A lot of people do that, except for you and me.
I never watched Survivor as a kid, just so people are clear.
You know what I meant, that you didn't stop. But like, I was legitimately surprised that Michael was like, oh yeah, James is my I mean, I'm not surprised that a child had James as their favorite player, but that he like knew about the game and was like, oh yeah, I remember when this happened and blah blah. And it wasn't just like, wow, yes, it was so terrible when James went home. This is information I definitely knew and didn't read on this note. Like, it felt legitimate, that he actually kind of knew that, and that was fun. And I had tweeted this, but it's refreshing. It's cool that the fact that it is an old idol actually like came into play, because I don't think his move would have, I mean, he could have tried it, but it would have been insane.
Oh, speaking of incredibly young, attractive people.
You made it weird again.
Indeed. Well, don't worry. He's not faking his age. Hello, Christopher, did you want to say hello to the, world, the tiny portion of it?
Hi.
Hi, buddy.
So this is Emily.
Happy late birthday. Happy late birthday.
What do you say when people say happy birthday?
What?
He's probably like, it was last week. I don't know what you're talking about.
What do you say when people give you presents? It's the same thing. We've taught him. He whispered
now
it to me.
He's like, are there more presents? What are you talking about?
Emily actually has not sent you a present, just so you know. You don't have to wait for that. What do you got in here? What's all this? Did you find more stuff at your Nana and Papa's house?
No.
Oh, you got this in one of those boxes that show up at our house every once in a while.
But I got this from the bag.
Oh. And then look at that. Son number 2. This is a whole family thing.
Not son number 1. He's son number 2.
Yes, you're looking very ghostly, which is appropriate because we are talking about a season called Ghost Island. But also because you're just in the hot lights. Oh, there we go. I have lighting there too, because I really went for the 3-point lighting that they did not teach me in film school because I took writing. Anything you want to say, Alexander, before you guys go to bed and we get back to talking about people slightly older than you?
Bye. Good night.
You're like, bye.
Good night, buddy.
Good night.
Gromit, are you staying or are you going? Gromit, you go too. Oh, that's interesting that you asked that. That bobblehead is actually a little Easter egg for Emily, and she probably can't see it on her tiny little monitor, but she might have just figured it out.
I think it could be. I didn't notice it before. Is that who I think it is?
Here, do you want to bring it over here so we can see, Christopher? There we go.
Bay.
All right. Do you want to bring that back into your bedroom? Yes, I'm stealing it from my son's collection. All right.
For confused listeners at home, first of all, Gromit is a dog. Second of all, the little toy was Killmonger, as played by, Michael B. Jordan, who some Twitter followers may know I am madly in love with.
And he, of course, represents the person we were talking about before we were so rudely interrupted. Michael.
Oh, Michael, yeah. I was like, Killmonger?
I think, the way he handled the tribal council suggests that it wasn't just somebody who read off the parchment what this thing is. I do think he recognized the idol and appreciated it. And I think it's important for people to remember, because it's like, how would a child remember this stuff? Young people today, like, binge watch everything. Like, the past television shows are present to them. They watch Friends as contemporary because the concept of this thing is on at a certain time doesn't really mean much to young people. So I hear that's tucked into the, New York Times millennials articles that my really old ass read sometimes. So I think, and I just know this from people on our site. There are disgustingly young people that respond to this stuff that, probably have watched all the seasons in more detail than I ever have or ever will. So, the fact that he's young did not preclude him for that. And I agree, it was a bit of a pleasant surprise, because when he was the person who found the idol, I was kind of like, eh. It's like I wanted somebody on that side to find it, but like, I don't know if he was my top choice.
You wanted Stephanie to find it.
I wanted Stephanie to find it, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm glad Michael did, because I think this was a really exciting attempt to do something with it. And I think, obviously a lot of people are looking to critique it because it did not work. Now, it should be noted, it came so close to working. And I think the main critique people have is that he said who they were going to vote for in Bradley. And people think that that was not it. That was not the way to go. That's what the point of failure. And those people are wrong, not surprisingly, because many people, other people that aren't me, are frequently wrong, and I am always right. And I think, and I'm going to let you talk in a minute. We'll get into is like first we need to kind of explain what Michael was trying to accomplish at Tribal Council. I mean, obviously, not go home or have any of his allies go home, but it was two things. He was first trying to suss out where to play his idol. So you're trying to cause a lot of panic and chaos, and then from there, maybe that would give you the information you need to correctly play your idol, because he had a 1 in 4 shot, despite everything he faked. And two, he was trying to get a backup plan in case he didn't guess right, and that would be somebody else voting with him to get rid of Bradley. So it's important though, like getting somebody to flip was just a backup. The main thing, like, he was always going to play his idol. This isn't like situations in the past where similar things were happening. Now, what did you think? Was it a mistake to tell people that they were going to vote for Bradley?
I mean, I can see where people are coming from with that, because it really doesn't give Sebastian or Chelsea, I'm just naming them because they were the ones the Malolos named, much motivation, really, because they know, okay, well, I'm going to be safe, so I can get that. But the problem is there just isn't really another easy solution. Like, it's just, they were in a very, very tough spot. And so, I mean, I'll admit, like, I listened to some exit interviews and stuff, and Brendan sort of talked about this. Like, they're really just trying to cause some chaos and stuff. And in one sense, it's kind of surprising that we didn't see any of the, like, live tribal stuff. Like, there was no whispering or talking or should we switch the vote and stuff. And we'll probably talk on that later. But, like, credit to the Navitis for like staying chill and calm, because what the others wanted was panic, and they really didn't panic.
Yeah, basically the only information they really were able to get any of that was that they're not voting for Michael. And obviously, I would think if they were going to vote for Michael, him pulling out an idol would have caused some form of reaction, but they didn't give it. But it's getting back to the Bradley thing. Yes, saying that the target is not you does not create a big incentive for specifically those two people, but anybody to flip. But a couple things is, like, there's actually no incentive to do it. If they keep the target secret, you flipping is not going to save you. Your flipping was just going to be a wasted vote unless you happen to guess correctly. And frankly, if it's you can't guess correctly. You can't be like, well, I'm going to throw my 5th vote on me. For one, that'd be stupid. For two, it's literally against the rules. So there's no way that one vote is going to change anything. So there's no reason to flip. What you're hoping for by doing all these different things and talking about how James's idol is worth 2 votes, which is a very good and plausible lie, is just that somebody screws up, somebody panics. And moreover, like I said, that this was a backup plan in case they don't get the vote, is that maybe they won't, or sorry, if he doesn't guess correctly who to play the idol for, is that maybe they just don't end up needing it. And the only way that works is if they vote with you. So they needed that the extra vote to be for whoever they were voting for, in this case Bradley. So they kind of had to say it, which yes, it de-incentivizes anybody that my neck's on the line. But the thing is, if your neck is on the line, you flipping your vote isn't going to change anything. And getting one person to flip their vote, just randomly, doesn't help Michael and the former Malolos. They need a 5th vote. So that's why it's different. And, that part of the plan is just long odds. Maybe somebody will screw up, which I think is why they targeted Sebastian and Chelsea. Maybe they are also on the bottom, but I think it's more like these are the two people most likely to screw up.
Right, like they're not like Kellen want to make a crazy stupid move.
Yeah, like it would have just been stupid. They were hoping for stupidity, and whether you target Bradley or you say, in fact, you can only target Bradley because you need a fifth vote. Without a fifth vote, that whole part of the plan is just nothing. It's wasted. It's meaningless because and if people haven't done this math themselves, a random vote, and it's interesting that we're talking about this the week you published an article about plurality votes. A random vote just makes it 4-4-1. And then they probably, almost certainly, like 95% lose on the revote. Yeah. They need a fifth vote to give them potential backup in case they can't figure out who to play the idol for. So they have to tell people who they're going to vote for. Now, some people were then saying that you do that at camp beforehand. And no, you don't do that, because the whole plan is to cause enough panic and a live situation that people make a bad decision. Because there's no good decision. Flipping is not a good decision. If somebody was wanting to flip, they would have already talked about that and had that feeling. This is a group that feels like there's that nobody on the other side is probably going to flip, and thus we need to do something desperate. Because the more time you give them, the more time they would think to be like, okay, well then we'll play it on this person, or they'll think to themselves, show me the parchment if I'm going to believe that this is going to be a two idol situation. You want to give people as little time as possible to figure out what the next move and hope that somebody panics. So you can't tell them beforehand. For all the reasons, you never tell anybody beforehand that you're about to play an idol. Frankly, it's weird that Jonathan Penner ever actually, flipped his vote. And I think most of it was, well, for one, it was a much more powerful idol. And for two, personally motivated. Because with enough time, you could have been like, yeah, I'll just say that I'm going to be with you, and then you guys won't vote for me. You can't give people time. But I think the reason why the instant reaction was that you don't tell them that they're voting for Bradley is because that was Malcolm's mistake the last time he said that we're immune. And I think people are thinking about the Malcolm situation, but they actually are not that analogous. Because in Malcolm's situation, what he was doing was, for one, he was trying to create a situation where he wouldn't have to play one of his idols. For two, he was telling them that we are all immune. One of you is going home. Pick. And he should have then let them pick to cause the dissension, and it doesn't matter. Here, Michael can't do that. And he knows, 3 out of the 4 of us won't be protected. He's pretending that 2 out of the 4 of us, but he's not. He hasn't created a situation where one of you guys is definitely going to go home. So you better change your vote to make sure it's not you. And as I said, changing your vote isn't going to make sure it's not you. And then the other historical president is Mike Holloway, who actually didn't say who the target was. But again, he was pretending that both he and Shireen would be immune, and somebody from the other tribe was going to go home. So change your vote, or it'll be you. Michael doesn't have that threat in this scenario, so it's not really comparable. What he's trying to do is get somebody to be their 5th vote. So he has to say who it is.
Man, how long was that?
Well, there's not much else to discuss this episode.
I feel like that was a good 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't need a co-host, but it's
a solid monologue there. Yeah, well, one thing I thought of, and I was going to say, is that I think part of it, another thing that's different about the Malcolm vote, or even Mike Holloway, besides what you mentioned, that it's post-merge. And these kind of crazy, us against them, idol play things don't happen very often in the pre-merge. Because obviously if it's one when there's no swap, you're just not that us against them anyway. But besides that, there is less motivation for them to flip, because it's not a situation like Sierra and Blood versus Water, where it's you're not going to beat these people, or these people are going to vote you off, you're on the bottom. Maybe Sebastian and Chelsea are on the bottom, but they're not going to be with these people all the whole time.
And it's the bottom of 9 right now.
They got time, they can figure something else out. They'll be able to get back together with their other people, potentially work their way in,
or flip later when the numbers work a little bit more in your favor, right?
Right. There's just, and I mean, I think, they've sort of acknowledged that later, and that's why they have to just kind of be desperate. There's just no reason for those other people to flip. There just isn't.
Yeah, so instead, the mistake Michael made was he chose the wrong person. That's it. Everything else was just like Hail Mary. And the suggestions that most people have laid out are no better than the Hail Mary he took. You're hoping somebody doesn't figure it out. And as I said, you need them to vote with you. So maybe picking Bradley is like, he's got to annoy some of these guys as much as he's annoying us. One person did make a suggestion, and if you listen to their podcast, he'll probably talk about it himself. But I didn't want to mention that there is a way out. Dom Harvey of Dom and Colin, replying to Rob, said, "What you do is you say you're splitting the vote 2-2, half on Bradley, half on somebody else." That's a scenario where one person flipping could save themselves, because if people are immune, and he's pretending half of us will be immune. Now, your one vote could save you, because it would make it 3-2. And of course, what you do is you never actually flip it 2-2. But, that's somebody that, is watching at home, that analyzes Survivor frequently, the next day thinking of it under none of the stresses or situations. And moreover, I think the play now in Survivor is when that person pulls out the idol at Tribal, you have to call their bluff. You have to, because what they're trying to do is create a scenario where you do the wrong thing and you don't play, either you don't vote for them and they just keep their idol, or, they psych you out. So you have to call their bluff. In this scenario, everybody had to call the bluff, even if they were really worried that it could be them, because their vote wouldn't mean anything. But I think, in future iterations to Survivor, even, the thing that, Dom Harvey suggested might not work, is just like, you have to just, call their bluff. And if you lose, you lost this one and it sucks you went home. But, you can't surrender the game to the other side either.
Yeah, and I believe actually a couple of our commenters came up with that split vote in our comments as well. I think there was a little back and forth, but I think it was ultimately Alcanara who had the split vote thing.
But I think they had it a split, but they didn't say mentioning one half, because I think that's key, is that you need to give somebody a target to flip too.
That is true.
And I think some people were also like, say that you're going to split your vote like 1-1-1-1, in which case, no, again, it doesn't matter.
That's
just
useless.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, then it'll be a tie, and maybe one of us will just split a vote to you guys. Another thing Michael could have done is, if he was, and I'm not criticizing him for not doing this, if he's trying to, make them even more panicked into making a bad decision, it's like, I'm going to protect two people, and one of them is not going to be me, because clearly you guys aren't voting for me. Because as I said, the one piece of information you could get is that they're not voting for Michael, because they were stone cold. They did not flinch. At which point, maybe they start flinching, and then you can maybe hopefully cause a chaos. But it probably still doesn't work. Ultimately, what he needed to do was play the idol right.
Yeah.
I think the lie was a really great way of hoping to cause chaos. And oh man, he was so close. He said the words, man.
Yeah, and I think the guessing wrong might be a little bit where his age plays into it, because there's obviously exit interviews aren't necessarily canon, and you got to take all this with a grain of salt. But Brendan has said that he really got the idea that they were going to vote for one of the guys, and then like later that right before, Kellen really had a tell. In that she reacted emotionally when he mentioned his birthday was the next day and he really wanted to be there for his birthday. So he had a feeling it was him. But more so than that, the fact that Michael seemed so sure they would vote one of the women seemed to be like he was still thinking they were focusing on like tribe strength, although Stephanie is fit as hell, but like that would be their motivation. And that is really not the motivation in a split vote game, or sorry, swapped tribe game. That's not often the situation at that point, especially when they're so divided. Like maybe it would happen on the new Naviti that's gotten a little more jumbled, a little more meshed in, but on something that's so where they're all like, oh, it's 5-4, sorry, sucks to be you. Like they're not going to care if they lose again, because they're going to just keep voting you off. So if anything, it's advantageous for them to be getting rid of the strong people, because then they have the opportunity to continue voting you off, especially because they saw at the last tribal council that Morgan got voted off, who was someone they were working with. And, they probably can tell that maybe the others are at risk, and they want to go into the merge with the numbers. This side wants to be Naviti strong, so they're probably better off continuing to lose. And even if they don't feel like straight up throwing a challenge, it'll help them to get rid of the people who would allow them to win.
Yeah. I will say, to Michael's credit, when Brendan was saying to him, I think it's going to be me, Michael's like, I feel like it's going to be me. So at least in his mind at one point in this, he did consider the fact that they weren't necessarily just going to target women. And to the point of Brendan saying, oh, I had a feeling, I would never believe anyone whose feeling is it's me.
For sure.
There's the same situation in like millennials versus Gen X when, people want to give Hannah credit for, sussing out that vote. No, when you say it's you, it's because you're afraid it's you.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel it's going to be me. Everybody here feels like it's you. I believe somebody's like, no, I don't. I think it's going to be, this person. It's not going to be me. That I'd listen to. But the self-interest, I worry that it's me. Yeah, duh. We're all there, buddy.
Right.
So I would never believe that, Reed.
That's definitely a good point. But I think also, we can see, obviously he tried, and kudos for trying. He tried to like read Bradley's face or like their faces when he said the names. I don't know, because I just didn't notice their faces enough, whether that's good on Bradley for like masking his emotion or bad on Michael for not being able to read it. But,
right.
That's where it really fell apart.
Yeah, and that's something we could never know as viewers because we don't get generally a two-shot in that scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any insert could be any
Fake,
time. And the one thing is, like, he didn't seem like he gave a lot of time to pause to read. He couldn't, I don't think, because anytime he gives to pause is time for perhaps to be Jeff eventually is going to be like, yeah, but this isn't actually two idols, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm playing along, but now that you've kind of said the thing, I'm going to have to slow you down. So I think he kind of had to, do it quick, and then it's like, but I'm actually going to vote for this person. Like, you had to, commit to what the actual bit was before Jeff blew up his spot, in which case any reactions would be useless, other than the reactions would probably be like, good one, bud. So yeah, I mean, he was close to guessing it right, and then he didn't. And I think largely he didn't. Maybe some of the reasons you laid out, and also whatever reason at that tribal council, he had the feeling of Stephanie. So I think that's where he was going to go, because he had to trust his gut. That's the title of the episode. All right. So yeah, I think it was a really strong move, and not strong for an 18-year-old. I think it was a strong move. It just sometimes the strong moves don't work, and possibly the reason why this one didn't is it was a stronger move by the other side. The episode really didn't want us to focus on that. Frankly, I don't want to focus on that because I don't like the other side right now, but they outmaneuvered them completely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they did what the other Navitis couldn't and just stuck together. Now, I think, they had the benefit of not having Dominic and Chris, who hated each other. Like, they had, I think Morgan had said that they were thinking originally they would try to maybe pull in Sebastian or Chelsea. So it seems those two are the sort of ones who are floating. But it seemed like, as I recall, that I don't think Desiree was even really part of the Morgan, Kellen, group. So that tribe, was that swap area was maybe a little more mishmashed, but in a more neutral way than Chris and Dominic were. So they just, stuck it out. They didn't let it spook them that Morgan went home and think maybe we should, switch things up, explore other options. If some of us are if some of the Navitis are flipping on their own, they were like, this is what works. And it is. I mean, the fact that there's no reason for them to flip made it impossible, almost impossible for the other side to do anything about it.
Yeah, and I think there's elements of the game they're not doing well. Things we discussed last week and continuing to discuss. I think it's the right move to stick with your 5, not surrender power. It's probably not the right move to completely freeze a bunch of other people out and do so in a way that feels a little imperious to the other side. But
yeah, I think what they're doing now is, I mean, obviously, again, without the rudeness, but their moves are good for the stage of the game now. But I think the way they're going about it is going to hurt them later.
Yeah. But in this particular instance, they worried about the potential for an idol, which you should. And they found the right target, and they did so, using the tried and true strategy of who's the least likely, but putting a modern spin on who's least likely. In many instances, the biggest target, the biggest threat is, somebody like Brendan. But then they're like, but they're going to be anticipating that we will, think that, we got to get rid of a weaker woman. So thus, that might be where the idol would go, and they wouldn't anticipate that we're doing Brendan. It's kind of the fun dialogue and evolution that's been happening ever since the Edgardo is, they think that we're going to do this because the playbook says we should do that, and then we should do this. In fact, rarely does the Edgardo actually even happen the way it's supposed to happen anymore, because people are constantly trying to outmaneuver. This time, the maneuvering worked. And then, as we said, they gave nothing away at Tribal Council. No flinching, no panic. To their credit, Kellen shut down any of the talk of why people should flip, and she's right. Whether we don't know, but clearly, nobody broadcast enough information for Michael to get that final read on people. So, they did everything right. Yet, and Bradley completely played this right. Yet he looks so bad. He looks so bad in the edit. And what are we to make about the people that walked away from the episode 100% successful, played it really well, and it felt like that he should be going home the whole time?
I think there's two things here.
It can always be two things.
Yeah, that was a real missed opportunity. I'm sorry, everyone. But yeah, I think part of it is that the editors maybe are trying to have a little bit of longer story arcs. Like, as much as we love the Drew Christie boot episode, that's also kind of rare too, for it to just be a rise and fall in one episode. And obviously this wouldn't have been that, because last week we had Bradley being like the complainer and stuff, which is why everyone predicted him to go home today. But so I think maybe they wanted to do, not today, this week. So I think maybe they wanted to do, a little bit more longer arcs, like play up stuff beforehand, so it's even more satisfying if and when they're voted out. But also, as much as the Edgic crowd tries to claim they were trying to trick us by including the scene of Adam, making a dumb move to trick us. Okay, I don't think that's true, but I think maybe, they're catching on to the fact that it's been 36 seasons. Even the non super duper fan types can tell, if someone gives a cocky confessional about how everything's going according to plan, they'll probably go home. So they're just kind of subverting those expectations, because the show's been on for a while, and got to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks in a row now. People are like, "Hey, the editors really tricked us, playing our own expectations against us." And I'll say maybe. But I'm going to put a pin on that. Let's see. Yeah, we could still get to a point in the season where it's pretty obvious who the contenders and who the non-contenders, or even who the winner is going to be. And frankly, that point might already be now. But I think, Bradley's still doomed. I don't know how. He should be riding high. Things should look really bad for our underdogs. And it's not just, I feel like they're trying to give us some underdogs to root for. That's, Survivor 101. They just really don't want us to like this dude. And he's not even doing anything that bad. It's like he's being just butchered by the edit. And I can only imagine that's because he will fail. And it was surprising that it wasn't this week. Dick. Maybe.
Maybe he was really rude at pregame or something. He didn't open the door for one of the producers, and they're like, "Let's get off."
Yeah, or maybe it's we thought we had it with Spencer, that he was going to be the nerd people love to hate, and instead they just love to love him. Come on, Spencer, understudy, we can do this. But I think because when you actually look back at it, he played this so well, and that's not what we came out of the episode. People are commenting on the episodes like, "Man, way to go, Bradley and Kellen," right? They were like, "Wow, that was really impressive by Michael." And if he only did this, they would have succeeded or anything. It's basically, if he hadn't gone up against people that had planned for the eventualities, it might have succeeded. But Bradley did so well, and I can't wait for him to lose. Me, the person who loves gameplay, I want that twerp to go back home so badly, and I got to imagine that they're going to give that to us. That's what I think was going on there.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that my team douchebag lasts just long enough to rack up the points.
I think your bracket's probably already done.
Oh yeah, but and especially because Outcast you have to win. But I just want enough. I thought I was at the point where it's going to be really embarrassing. I want just enough for it to not be embarrassing. Right. Plus the fact that really, I mean, for those who don't know, because unless you're like obsessed with reading our rankings, why would you? My current fantasy league team is Bradley and Chris Noble. So I've got team douchebag, and we're riding high.
They're certainly confident in their position. Now you're just hoping to make the merge. You want your team to be dateable. So I don't think, even though they lost big and it should be against a side that is, why would we ever flip 5? Now it's 5-3. I don't think those original Malolos on that tribe are doomed. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for one, I feel like there will probably be a swap pretty soon, like maybe after one more. So if they can manage not to go back to tribal council, that would be great. Also, I mean, there's some stuff for the next week on Survivor that might hint at why someone might flip or why they might want to turn on someone, but I know not everyone likes to watch those, so I don't know if we should be specific.
But, it's canon.
But yeah, basically that Sebastian and Jenna are being flirty, could be the new Figgy and Taylor, which I get it for why he'd want Jenna, but
well, I mean, maybe she sussed out that Michael's a child and Bradley is a twerp.
And she just wants something. Yeah, it's sometimes it's personal taste, and that's all.
Actually, she is a beach bum, so that would be
that's true. So that might be her vibe, and that's fair. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that could, whether it saves. I mean, on one hand, it could be James suddenly being maybe we should vote out Morgan. Livy is hanging out with her. Maybe that'll make Bradley and the others be let's vote out Jenna, and maybe that'll just doom the Malolos even more. Maybe it'll make Sebastian want to flip, or maybe they'll be let's instead turn on Sebastian because we think he's going to turn on us. Who knows?
Yeah. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that people like Jenna and Michael would have an easier time forming a relationship with Sebastian than Bradley, for instance. Mm-hmm. Bradley self-admitted flaw is that he has a difficult time talking to dumb people, and I'll leave it to you guys to decide where he might feel Sebastian lands on that spectrum.
You don't think Bradley is enjoying his time with Sebastian on Malolo, low?
I mean, it's hard to say. Beach? Who's to know? But no, I don't. I think it's him and Kellen. I think they probably get along really well. They're probably on the same wavelength and talk all the dorky strategy stuff.
And Lord knows what Desiree and Chelsea are doing.
Yeah, apparently not much. Although Desiree did make the key suggestion in this episode, so we should raise her ahead of Chelsea, whose key suggestion was to sit. But yes, it was it was Desiree who moved the target from Michael to Brendan, as far as the episode wanted us to tell her. But
and she's really good at shooting baskets. That didn't come up this episode, but it's another thing that came up in general.
Did she set this challenge?
Yeah, she did, which was weird, but
that's how little that Desiree and Chelsea want to participate. They're just we're sitting them all, and the other four Malolos can't offer to sit. Well, for one, I think they're all fairly athletic, so why would they? But it's we got to fight for our lives. We need to win this immunity.
Yeah, I mean, Desiree. A lot of people were wondering why Desiree sat when they were shooting. I mean, it honestly might have just been because Chelsea sat the last one out, and the basket wasn't the only part of the challenge.
That's right. But yeah, I don't think they're doomed. And in part because maybe there's going to be something left on Ghost Island to help them out because Kellen left it behind. What did you think about Kellen's decision at Ghost Island?
I mean, I can see why it'd be really tough, but I think in that situation, especially when it's so divided and you have the simple majority, I think you have to keep your vote. Like you guys said, like with Jacob, it's like he didn't need his vote wasn't going to help him, so you might as well go for it. Her not
It's the inverse situation.
yeah, like
no
her
advantage will be as valuable to her as her vote in this in that very next tribal council.
yeah, like her not having a vote would have been disastrous for them.
Yep.
Like, I mean, yeah, it was a tie, so they might have been able to pull something up, but like, I feel like
then it's the rocks at that point,
right?
The
and
other
then you
side is
just
going to
hope,
rock.
and like, because they were so sort of short-sighted and not reaching out to the Malolos at all, there's no way those four were going to stay strong. So at that point, you might see a Sebastian or a Chelsea or even a Desiree at that point. Or honestly, even a Bradley or Kellen who's like, I did not come out here to go home pre-merge due to rocks, like Vitas.
To say Bradley,
Yeah, like Vitas was fully on Brad Culpepper's side, but like he didn't want to go home for him, and no one wants to pull rocks in the pre-merge. Like they're just
and other than Angela, apparently.
Sure, but
yeah, she's ready to go to rocks for people who are not feeling it for her. I mean, I'm the person who's always wanting people to be a little more bold, who frequently talks about people misassessing risk, that the absence of action also creates risk, and I 100% support Kellen's decision. The only thing she had to lose was her vote, because frankly, and she doesn't know this, but the advantages probably often aren't helping you win the very next vote. More often, advantages seem to be long-term plays. There's no long-term right now. She needs to win this one vote, and then long-term, or at least medium-term, is set up pretty well. She wins it by having a vote. So no, I think it was actually a fairly no-brain decision that I support completely. Which I'm not. That's not a dig. I'm saying she made the right move. There's no question in my opinion.
right, yeah.
All right, so let's flip forward to the other tribe. They didn't have as much strategy or do things because they didn't lose. But I think the big thing that came out of the Navidi tribe now is that Chris Noble likes himself, and John and I. Yes, I loved that so much.
I was floored by that revelation.
John and I have talked a lot this season about what we are enjoying, what Chris Noble is bringing to this season thus far, and I wanted to get a chance for you to weigh in. What do you think of Chris Noble? Do you like him as much as he likes himself? Of course, no. But do you like him at all?
Impossible. It's just, I mean, like, no, in the way like I didn't like Drew Christie, but I also love the Drew Christie boot episode. So, but every now and then you get the moments like, I like myself, or like, you live in New York, you get it. But I need more, He's not giving me I'm trying to collect those like morsels of arrogance, but I'm just not getting as much as I expected. It's not what I wanted. So I'd like to see more come out. Maybe he could lay it on a little thicker, and then I could enjoy that. But as of now, I just need it to be a little stronger.
Yeah. I did like that when he came back from Ghost Island, he did what we knew he would. Started acting like he was in charge of this alliance that had gone the other way. Hadn't even gone the way he wanted.
I also feel like he had zero reaction to Morgan being gone. Like, I'm not sure he noticed that there was someone missing. Yeah. Like I mean, granted, like, when Jacob came back, it was to camp, so it was like, you had to be like, hey, who's not here? Mm-hmm. And like Donathan, I mean, obviously it was going to be Jacob gone, but like this should have been a legitimate surprise. And like we saw that with the other tribe, and he was just like, yep, I'm just back. Hi guys, I'm back.
Yeah, I'm here to lead my team. Yeah. And yeah, also, the Chris Noble highlights was when Angela was talking about it and saying that they voted for me. It's like, oh, that was obviously a vote for me, which is both funny because it plays right into his arrogance and also was right. I mean, he wasn't wrong. Spot the lie. I don't think it's there. Well, yeah, I thought the highlight of that beach was Chris Noble saying, "I like you, I like you, I like you, I like myself." I almost get to the point where just little moments like that might be he's a bit in on the joke, and I'm not saying he's crazy arrogant. It's not a that's not a routine. It's not even like a Nick Mariano thing, but he at least maybe has fun with it to a degree, which I don't want actually. I don't want him to have fun with it. I don't want.
I can deal with a Bradley being in on it, but like a Chris Noble needs to be blissfully unaware.
Yeah. And of course, and why we like it and how it'll bring to the season is it created interest again because right away Donovan's like, but don't you like Wendell better?
when Laurel, who very deftly, by the way, kind of sussed out Donathan's opinion first, when she asked Donathan if he liked Wendell better, if he liked Chris better, like he didn't say, but you could see Donathan just thinking like, girl, what do you think?
Yeah, but that was like her part. It's like, why are you assuming I like Wendell better? I mean, obviously the answer, hopefully the answer is why wouldn't you? The other guy is Chris Noble, but or else he's just kind of assuming here. Yeah, let's roll back and what do you think?
But then, it was quickly revealed that Donovan was like, Wendell is by far a superior human being than Chris.
Yeah.
But I found it interesting. I mean, maybe we just didn't see it, but I found it interesting that it really just seemed to be Laurel and Donathan kind of teaming up with Dominic and Wendell. And like I could see them leaving Libby out because I think, and by really being able to stick together and get rid of a Naviti, I think they held on to this. But like sort of underreported last week was that Libby was sort of with the Brendan, Michael, Jenna, Stephanie crowd, where the others were kind of the outsiders.
Yeah. Laurel, James, and Donovan were the outsiders. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so like that they were able to stick together and not let her get pulled away. But now that they have a little more power, like they might not need her as much, and especially when they'll soon see Brendan gone. Although apparently Laurel was actually like really tight with Brendan, and we just didn't see it. But
everybody liked Brendan. That wasn't
I'm sure he was a very nice man.
Just like everybody on Andrew Savage's team liked him, besides Skinny Ryan. As long as you're not that one guy, Brendan is amazing. What did you think about her? Because as you were saying, I think it seemed more like it was their thing, and I'm not sure if it was wise to go rogue like they may have been. Obviously, we don't have enough of the story. Maybe they're just sussing things out.
Yeah, I mean, if there's just sort of exploratory, because I think this happens a lot. It was kind of especially like this was kind of something I thought with Kellen last week is like shutting it down or like being, scrambling that much when you're not going to tribal yet. I feel like, you really want to keep your options sort of open or like just be like, yes, we're just living together, happy camp life when you're not like going to tribal. Obviously you need to do a little planning, but yeah, so if they're just kind of checking it out and then maybe if they lose a challenge, then they kind of can come to James and be like, what do you think about this? Or, discuss it more, see how they feel. Then that's fine. If they are fully like gonna be like, yep, we're with these guys now. Again, that's silly because they haven't gone to tribal yet. So
yeah, and then it would also be creating a different 4-4 situation. Maybe one that could exploit because of another plurality and vote splitting, but yeah, I would say it would be a huge mistake to make a move without James and probably Libby. But we don't know if that's what their true intention was. If it's just, first off, let's not just shut off this avenue because they're not wrong that working with Chris Noble is probably a mistake long term. Mm-hmm. Although I think it's actually a really good idea midterm just because he's going to hurt himself and potential Naviti bonds down the line. But look what came out of it, right? By Laurel reaching out to Dominic, she finds out about his idol because he can't not tell.
Yeah, and if the other Malolos, go to tribal again, like, and then there's another swap, like, it's important to, now they haven't completely burned those bridges. If it ends up being like Laurel and Libby with Dominic, and then like, you know, a couple Naviti, a couple like, you know, something weird, like they kind of have a little more to work with. And, you know, Chris will still think that he's working with them too. Like,
yeah. So like if this is just the opening salvo for Laurel making her own connections, her own bonds, then I think it will be the first part of showing a really good game player. If it's just like, man, I don't like that Chris guy, let's just flip you and me, that's not good. No, because don't surrender the power. Right now, you have power with two other people. Don't just hand it over, you know. But if they in turn decide, I want to work with Wendell and Dominic, I'm going to push James and Libby to get rid of Angela or Chris, you know, big up to that.
yeah. Also, if I can say real quick, I thought it was, I mean, a lot of this could just be what they sort of showed us on TV, but I thought it was smart that they had, like, Donathan was talking to Wendell, Laurel was talking to Dominic, and honestly, even if they don't work with him, they had Libby talking to Chris, who is definitely the one Chris wants to talk to, but also like will placate him and like make him feel safe. But that, like, I mean, it's impossible to say because we like didn't see Donathan last week, but like, you know, in theory, like people aren't necessarily seeing him and Laurel as like a tight pair. So it's not necessarily where they will, I'm sure, see Dominic and Wendell as it. So it's not necessarily going to look like, oh, they're dividing and conquering to work with them. It's just like, oh, people are just having conversations and blah, 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 you know.
As you say, Libby being the perfect pick with Chris Noble to team with Chris Noble just shows like why I would be in no hurry to get rid of Chris Noble. That guy is just too easy, right? Yeah. Like he's just that's the guy you need to keep around because he's not really going to trick anybody.
I think even though now that they've like betrayed, or I think the fact that Angela was willing to go to Rocks for Naviti is why you cut her.
Yeah, I laid that out a bit in the predictions. I'm not saying you took it from me. You might not even read what I write, but the way I edit suggests that maybe the same is true for other people. But yeah, it's just like that's probably somebody you just don't want to mess with, man.
Yeah.
These other people seem kind of cowardly and easily manipulated. Let's maybe get that element out of the game because clearly she has a different value system than everybody else playing. So we've talked about obviously Michael's big move. Bradley and Kellen and company's counter move, you know, Laurel's initial moves here. Is there anybody else that's both impressed you both this episode and since we haven't talked to you yet for the season?
That we haven't talked about already?
Yes. Yes.
I feel like we've talked about most people. I mean, yeah, I think Stephanie Johnson did a good job. I know you love her.
Frankly, like I don't even know if she did much this episode.
No,
I did like her, you know, repartee at Final Tribal Council. It's like it's nice that they made you think that, or
that
something to that effect.
And other
it's
than
more
that,
edit wise, she is still glowing. So I am still very much buying Stephanie stock.
And, you know, realistically, I just don't think there was that much for her to do. Like, she wasn't the one with the idol. You know, she had already tried talking to Kellen, you know, and presumably other members as well. I'm sure off screen she talked to Chelsea.
She found Chelsea somewhere if she was actually legitimately in the game. Who can say?
Yeah. But yeah, like, I mean, I think she's been playing well. But yeah, I feel like we talked about like just about everyone. Like the only people we haven't talked to are like the people we don't like or the invisible Naviti people.
Yeah, and we are not a podcast who feels the need to talk about invisible people. Why aren't they in the show? Who cares? Frankly, there's probably a reason. All right,
they're either not interesting or not important to the story. It's that simple.
That's right. If this was an actual narrative, they would have been cut out from the beginning. And in reality TV, you have to like, well, they weren't there.
Very much.
That's right. This character isn't contributing, lose it, and yeah, that's at least 3 to 4 people this season. All right, predictions for next week. Who you got going home from the Malolo tribe? We'll start there.
I did forget that being on the podcast meant I would have to have my predictions already.
Yeah, also, it's written down in the thing I send you and the things that we're going to talk about. But
I'll go. Like it wasn't. I don't know. I read
10
other words.
Predictions for next week. It's the second to last one.
skip it.
I will go then.
Okay.
I'll give you some time. All right. So as I kind of intimated, I still think Bradley is doomed. Now, I think a lot of people have made convincing cases that it could be that next swap he gets trouble, and that would be actually fairly poetic, Mister. There's nothing you guys can do. We have the numbers to find himself on the bottom numbers, or maybe at the merge or something like that. It's just again, he succeeded so much, yet looked so bad. I feel like it's just things are going to turn on him, and whether it's maybe one of the surviving original Malolos getting an advantage that they can use right away. I suggested one could be Stephen Fishback's vote steal. You get a vote steal, now it's 4-4. Now you can get somebody to flip. Now your threat is you vote with Bradley, or you're drawing rocks and you could go home to save Bradley. The three of us have to draw rocks. We have no other recourse. So I think that could be a situation. Or it could be something as simple as flipping Sebastian and one of the other Invisibles. And frankly, just to make clear, Sebastian isn't that much more visible. He just says stupid stuff sometimes. So that's how he gets his camera time. But clearly he's not going to be invisible next week based on the preview. And as I said, it's not hard to imagine a world where Bradley and Kellen make him feel not part of things. Frankly, we already saw that seed starting to develop at camp, right? Where once they started talking about, well, we can just get rid of stronger people. We don't need them. Sebastian being like, that comment resembles me. I don't know if I want to play
in the weirdest way possible. I am also a big boy.
Well, I mean, of course it's weird. It's him, man.
Yeah. Michael is a big boy. Sebastian and Brendan are big men.
Yes. And you're
adult.
And who is he again? I'm setting you up for your joke about Sebastian.
Oh, Boy Baylor.
Why? I give people 3 times a season a chance to talk, and you messed it up. Moreover, as Josh Wickler pointed out on Twitter, you also Boiler.
You know how I feel about puns.
It's not even a pun. It's something else.
I feel like it's a little bit of a pun. Anyway, I missed it because I was just making.
It turns around on Bradley, and Bradley goes home. That's my prediction for that tribe. What do you got?
I missed it because I was making the point that Sebastian was a man, not a boy, so that threw me off.
He's really not, though.
I know, but that, I was making fun of him for saying he was a big boy.
But I do like that seed, and I think that's something to watch because, yes, it's not hard. Obviously, this is situational. It's just like they won't expect this, blah, blah, blah. But it's also not hard to think that Bradley would be the type to want to target strength at some point in the game. A, because everyone always does, and B, because that does not describe Bradley. And if you're Sebastian and you feel like it describes you, that might be something that the original Malolos can chip away at. So I'm letting my Bradley pick ride.
Well, now it feels boring if I do.
I mean, it's going to be right at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I have tried that strategy.
I know, Jovina 7 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
I think I finally got it.
I
think I got it wrong because it was a double episode and I might have gotten the order wrong. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I feel like, so I'm kind of wondering if I should switch it up, because I feel like Jenna's maybe the other possibility because, whenever there's a showman, you got to get rid of the girl.
Yes, maybe you should really go with the cynicism. It rarely fails with Survivor predictions.
It has failed me every time so far this season, though. But I went with the wrong cynicism in the first episode. I could have had it. Yeah, I could have had it, but I went the wrong way.
Yeah, totally wrong, Stephanie. Not like me and John, who nailed that one.
Plus, my cynicism was focused on the other tribe. But yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna say Jenna this time. Right. And yeah, I think it's pretty established why. If they'll want to just kind of keep chipping away, they're worried about losing Sebastian because it's already been addressed that Sebastian is, on the outside. I mean, the problem is he's saying that he wants to keep her there because of that. So they might not want to give up on it, they might want, if he's putting up a fight, they might not want to alienate him, but at the same time, they don't want him to link up with her. So, I mean, maybe they could do Stephanie because of that. They
It's not
figure
Stephanie.
Michael doesn't have an idol. It could be anyone. It's probably Bradley.
Yeah, that's how predictions work. It really could be anyone.
It's probably Bradley.
All right. Look for the post this week where she finally commits. Other tribe. You've been talking a while, so I'm going to give my prediction. As we see in the next time on Survivor, and suddenly Donathan's actually going to start to like Chris Noble, which might change things where it did look like maybe he was in the crosshairs. And maybe like Survivor's just going to keep building this, is Chris Noble in trouble arc, which is weird and troubling, and I don't want that. We should not be rooting for him to work his way out of trouble. But I do think that Dominic, I wonder what Dominic telling them that he has an idol will do. Will that make them stay away from him? Will that redouble their efforts to split the vote because now they know for sure, which would be hilarious because it'd be that every time Dominic opens his mouth, he gets the opposite action. I'm going to predict Wendell, and the largest reason is that he's the number one person on our fantasy teams, and that seems to be how it goes. So it's your time, Wendell. Sorry.
Because he was the number one person on our fantasy team, I didn't pick him for my draft pick, so I picked Bradley, and I regret it so much. I'm going to. I hope you're wrong because I like Wendell.
Me too.
I'm going to go with Angela.
Right.
I think she's been in trouble a little bit and hasn't gotten the screen time, whereas like the other non-screen time getters generally have been very safe.
All right. So that's, I think we've covered it for this week's episode. Anything else?
You wanted to talk about the bracket.
Yeah, that's the future thing. So this is like, anyway.
I know. No, I don't have anything.
If you are somebody who follows college sports or just likes filling out dots and competing in random things, Matt put together a NCAA bracket challenge through ESPN. Now, the games have already started, so if you haven't filled it out, tough luck. It's too late. Unless you want to take like a bunch of L's. But if you have filled out a bracket on ESPN, you can still join our group. And to do so, just search out Purple Rock Pod, and the password is 2 things with a capital T. That is TWO things, not the 2 things. A couple weeks ago, we did a Oscar predictions challenge, and I forgot to congratulate Assistant Dragon Slayer on the podcast, so consider that done.
Congratulations.
Yes, he only got 2 wrong. And
it's only because I abstained this year.
There's no way you would have beaten him. And more importantly, he beat me. So that's pretty impressive to beat me. I think tied for 5th or something. Because I decided to not be cynical with the best picture, and that was a mistake. Cynicism rules.
Well, I thought the
I guess Ultimate Cynicism would have been 3 billboards, but I knew that was not going to win.
Shape of Water was like mid-level. It was like safe.
That seemed to be the safe favorite.
The fish monster sex movie is the safe choice.
That's the one thing.
Down the middle.
Twitter, obviously Twitter is all in favor of Get Out, and they should be. It was the best movie. But everybody's like, oh, of course they chose it. Really? The sci-fi fish sex movie is the safe choice. Oh, the Academy has always given awards to movies like that. No, it was actually a pretty unique choice.
And like Guillermo del Toro's been around for a while, but not in like Oscar-y movies the way.
Yeah, I mean, he had the one, but otherwise, it's like, oh, they were just dying to give the director of Hellboy an Oscar. No, like give the Academy some credit. They didn't choose necessarily the best, but it was a pretty bold choice for a fairly good movie.
Apparently everyone just like really likes him. Like he's just like a really great guy. So that could be part of it. And you know what? That's fine. Like he did well. He does seem like a very nice guy, a very nice man.
But if they had chose Get Out, I think I would have won the whole thing because that was a 4-point swing. Anyway, so that sort of thing sounds so much fun. It goes on our website, which you can find at purplerockpodcast.com, where there's even an article by you up there.
It's true. I did one this time. I just have to. It was easier in the early seasons when everything was unique. Well, not early seasons, but early seasons
of you writing. Yes,
the site because like
to write about.
Yeah, like, a fake idol. We haven't done that, various things. Now a lot of that has been covered. And so, kind of just got to be inspired by something. So yeah, technically the blog this week is in response to last week's episode, but the content is pretty evergreen, so feel free to check that out.
Especially since it went live, I think 2 hours before the podcast, so really got buried quickly. So if you were like, oh yeah, I was going to read that, do that now.
It was done a little bit earlier than that, but
well, I am a full-time stay-at-home dad, so maybe finish your stuff earlier to give me some time here.
I'm a full-time worker,
but apparently not. So you can find
writing other stuff for money.
I know your job got in the way. That's the worst. That's why I don't have one anymore. You can follow us on Twitter. The site is Purple Rock Pod. I am Purple Rock Andy, and you are
Purple Rock Emma.
Subscribe in the various places you subscribe. And for the people watching on YouTube, I'm going to hit stop soon. For the people listening to their podcast, you'll get to hear a little bit of music.